everybody. I'm back again with the Author of the Week interview. This week, our Author of the Week is Susan Crowe, showing here.
Hello.
So again, before we fire away with the questions, I'm going to ask Susan to just introduce herself and say something about her books, hopefully concentrating on introducing the new book, which only came out on Monday. So, tell us something about yourself, Susan.
Okay. Well, I'm Susan Crowe. I'm Virginia's mum, and I'm a retired school teacher, and now I've been trying my hand at writing. This book that came out yesterday, the day before yesterday, without a big launch, of course, because of the problems we're having with the virus at the moment, is my third book, and it's the companion book to my first book. The second book was a children's story in rhyme called Rosie Jane and the Squadron, but the first book I wrote was called Child of the Isle, and this book is Child of the Earth. Is that all right?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you very much. So yes, Child of the Earth that came out on Monday, so it's been in existence now for 2 days. If you haven't got it, you're really missing out. Head over and find it at our website or on Amazon or a host of other places too. Right, so let's begin the interview. Our first question for you is, what was the first piece of writing that you can remember making or writing?
Right, well, that was in fact non-fiction, as the two books, Child of the Isle and Child of the Earth, are. It was a piece that I wrote at primary school about dogs, and I illustrated it with a picture of a collie, which was passable, I think. But that's the first piece, the complete piece that I remember actually writing.
Very good. And what happened with the dog?
The collie was that. Well, the picture was based on my grandparents' dog called Lassie. Yeah.
But what was your writing about?
Well, it was about dogs. It was like I say, it was non-fiction, and I was writing about the dogs I knew at that time as a little girl. The corgi that was owned by my father's employers that we used to look after. It was called Paddy, and we used to look after him when they went away. And Lassie, my grandparents' dog. At that time I didn't have a dog, but very soon afterwards we got a chocolate Labrador called Rusty.
Very good. And now you've got a chaotic spaniel called Orlando.
Yes, very chaotic.
Thank you. And what is your favourite genre to read? Do you enjoy reading non-fiction more than fiction, or
about the same really? I like to read nature books, obviously, because this last book, Child of the Earth, is about nature, and that's a huge passion of mine. I don't like the nature books that are full of statistics. That leaves me cold, and I switch off and tend not to complete the reading of them. But I like a more narrative, a more personal approach to nature writing, really. And I like poetry in the language as well.
Yes.
Which statisticians tend not to bother too much about.
No.
But I've got some favourite nature writers which I've written down because, the head's a bit of a sieve sometimes. Richard Jefferies, the Victorian writer, I really like. Modern day writers, John Lewis Stemple, James Rebanks, Stephen Moss and John Lister Kay, and going back again to Edwardian times, Edith Holden. But as well as nature writing, I read writers. I also like to read mysteries. And Susan Hill's Simon Saraye series is a favourite at the moment. I like her books. I like all her books, actually. I like The Mist in the Mirror, The Woman in Black. I like her children's books as well, Codling Village Stories. And one of my favourite, all-time favourite books is a book she wrote called Family, and that was her about her need to have another child and all the problems she had having another child, and I can't read that even now without crying. I always cry. It's a very moving book. Yeah.
Yes, you read some of that at a Book Week Scotland event.
I did. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So question 3 then. Gosh, we're firing through these. Child of the Earth is the companion book, like you said, to Child of the Isle. What do they have in common?
Right, well, they're both about my roots and my development. I'm still developing. I think I'd like to think that I always will be developing. But it's the Child of the Isle is about my roots in the Isle of Axholme when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s. And that's focused, that book focuses on that period of my life. But Child of the Earth is right across my life, but concentrating and exclusively really on nature, because as I said earlier, nature is a great passion. It's a wonderful thing, and the book is all about what I remember of nature, what I've learned of nature, and little bits and pieces that I've written linked with nature.
Very good. So would you say that Child of the Earth and Child of the Isle are companions for yourself, or would they work as companions for other people as your readers as well?
They would work in that way. Not to everyone, of course, because not everyone wants to know about a 50s and 60s childhood in North Lincolnshire, but I think that they do have other things. They have an honesty in common as well. If someone likes to read, excuse me, honest books that are genuinely, honest, then that's the sort of reading that they'll enjoy, because there are no frills to it. It's just what I remember of my childhood, in the case of Child of the Isle, and what I know, have learned, and I'm still learning of nature in Child of the Earth.
Very good. And she says there's no frills in it, but of course what she means is there's no fabrication in it.
Yes, that's
because actually she's one of these writers she was talking about earlier who have a very poetic approach to writing prose. So there are poetic frills, but not any fabrication.
I think that's true. I mean, I like to think that my prose has a poetic nature to it, but nature, no pun intended. but yes, that's the sort of thing I meant. Really, no fabrication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so sticking with the nature theme here. Birds feature very heavily in Child of the Earth. I know you are a big fan of birds. We have a spectacular bird feeding station that Alex set up in the garden, and it's just been growing since then. If you could be any bird, what would you be, and why would you be that bird?
Right, well, I knew I was going to have this question. I knew that I was going to get these questions. And so I had to think really hard about this, because this isn't necessarily, I mean, I don't have a favourite bird, but I had to imagine that I was a bird for this, not the birds which I think, have the most beautiful song or most beautiful plumage or most interesting habits, but the bird that I would like to be. Mm-hmm. And I went for a skylark. And you're going to ask me why, aren't you?
Yeah, that's part of the question.
Right, well, because I've made notes here. Because they're inconspicuous, and the song is conspicuous, but the appearance is inconspicuous. That would suit me nicely. And that also, I could rise up vertically on a spring morning with this beautiful song, and I could look down and see the world and sing my gratitude for the beauty that is beneath me. And also, people tend not to eat skylarks in this country these days. That's a plus too.
And you'd have that amazing tuft.
Yeah, I think I've got one already.
enjoyed The Child of the Earth and The Child of the Isle now, and coming on to the other book that you mentioned, the children's book, Rosie Jane and the Squadron. Now, you invented the Squadron for this book, and this is an entirely new creation to the world. Can you just introduce the Squadron and explain what it is, what it does, what it looks like, and then could you explain as well how you came up with the idea for it, because it's really, it's quite a different idea for a mythical creature to look and behave quite like it does.
Well, it actually, I think it all started because my children were very young, and I was writing the Rosie Jane poems. There are a few of them, the stories in rhyme, and I was writing them for them, and they liked silly words. They used to like making up words, and they were always interested in words, and particularly silly words at that stage. And actually, they're still interested in silly words.
That's true. That is true.
And so I made up the word first, as I remember anyway. This is how I remember it, but like I say, the head's a bit of a sieve these days. And so I made up the word Squadron, and then I wanted to put form to it, and I had an idea that I wanted it to be something that was easily found, that was considered to be something that was spent, something that had had a life, and I could sort of reinvent it. So I plumped for an apple core. So the Squadron is a bit like an apple core, going a bit brown in the middle, you know, where it's been eaten. And it has eyes and a cute little mouth. And actually, you're my illustrator for that one, so you know it as well as I do, better. But it really is quite a cool creature, because it warns humans of problems that might be coming up. It reminds them to be careful of things, makes them aware. And my other daughter Clemency actually worked out some stranger danger worksheets based on the Squadron, available for teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've got a whole set of teaching resources there, teachers, linked in with the story, but similarly, if you haven't read the story, they work almost as well. I mean, obviously, read the story. It's a great story. Read the book.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I ought to say here, actually, that another reason for choosing the apple core was because at that time we were living in Orkney then, and Ginny's brother Alex got into trouble at school for throwing his apple core into the long grass, and it was a shame because I'd always told the children that was a good idea. If you threw an apple core into the long grass, you may visit that area in years to come and see an apple tree growing. And I explained to them that it would rot down, and when it rotted down, that would provide that would be a good place for the seeds to germinate, and that it might, just if it was not interfered with, provide a tree of apples for someone in the future. And I explained to them that this often happened at the side of railways, where people threw their apple cores after their picnics out of the train window. So I had to explain that to the teacher when he'd been cross with Alex, and he was very nice about it, actually. But having the Squadron in their lives seemed to claim back that idea of sharing apples. Apple cores. Yeah.
So now we're moving on to the last question that you know what the question is. Yes. So again, we've got our mystery 7th question, which Susan has no idea what it's going to be. But this is the final one that you've been able to plan for. If you could single out just one great environmentalist, either an historic one or a contemporary one, who would it be?
Well, I have to admit, I couldn't plump for
Oh,
one.
I knew she wouldn't.
But
Just
I've only chosen two, and I've chosen an historic one and a contemporary one.
Oh, I'm not sure we should let her get away with that, really.
Well,
It said one on the question. It said one.
Well, I chose them because the historic one has always been such a major player in my life. What I've known of this person, so I can't leave him out. And the contemporary one really is magic for the future. So I really had to choose both of them, and they are both this, different sides of the same coin. When all said and done, aren't they? When you think about it, the historic and the contemporary, and we're moving forward, aren't we? So,
fine, let's have them then.
Right. Well, I want to know if you know who this is.
Probably not.
Right. So listen carefully. I'm going to see if I can get the Italian right. Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone. Now, you don't know who that is?
No idea.
Well, I'll give you a clue. This person lived in from 1181 to 1226, and your middle name, one of your second Christian name, was given to you because I so much loved this person.
Oh, okay, I know who it is now. Yeah.
Who is it then?
It's St Francis.
Yes, it's St Francis of Assisi. Because St Francis of Assisi has always been, to me, the greatest historic environmentalist. I know that we are at a point in time where we need a different outlook on environmentalism, but he really did draw people's attention to nature and the value of things other than man. Animals, plants, trees, birds, everything.
Yes, yeah, I approve of that one. So let's have the contemporary one.
I didn't have to think long about this one. I went with Greta Thunberg because I think that her focus and her self-sacrifice to open the eyes of people who do not see the need to make alterations to the way they live their lives in order to keep us going, keep this planet going, to keep all species going if possible, and to keep this world the beautiful place that we know. I think she is a real inspiration. I don't always agree with everything, her approach to everything, and I've made a note here. I have to tell you this because she said that she doesn't want people to be hopeful, she wants them to panic. Now, I don't share that feeling, but I know what she means. She doesn't want people to sit back and think, oh, well, I'm hopeful that everything will be all right. She wants people to realise the damage that we're doing to the world and to make changes. And so she's trying to jolt people and make them aware. So I understand what she means, but I figure that if you don't have any hope, you won't do anything. Because without hope, I don't think you can make a difference.
I'm going to have to stop you there, and there's a reason for this. This is because my mystery question, you're already answering, so just give me a moment to just put in the mystery question.
Right.
Right, so question 7. Your writing is full of hope and inspiration.
Thank you.
How do you marry that? Although I think you may have already given us the answer to this, but develop on it with your discussion in Child of the Earth about the threats of climate change. How do you manage to keep a positive outlook, a hopeful outlook, while you're discussing those sort of topics?
Oh dear. Right. I have to mention here that I am a committed Christian, and it matters to me. Prayer is important, so I do believe that when you have a faith, it makes it easier to communicate your fears and to see things more clearly, see the way to go more clearly. So I have to say that. I know not everyone shares that, but that is who I am. But I think that if you want to get the best from any situation, from any people, you have to communicate hope. I think it's so important that we see hope in our lives as individuals, as families, as communities, as a country, and as a planet. I think we have to have that hope in our lives to be able to address the dreadful problems that we have at the moment. And if we have no hope, we will just sit back and let the whole thing disintegrate. And that's what will happen if people don't make a move to improve the planet, to improve our relationships with different countries, different faiths, different races. We need to get together with hope to make this world a safe place for people and animals and everything.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now, is there anything that you would like to address to your audience while we have them here as a captive audience?
I haven't thought about this, but I would like to tell you that if you read my book, I think you'll know how much I would like a friendship to develop between me, the writer, and you, the reader, because I think if I can make this a two-way thing so that we participate together in our affection for nature, our passion, and my passion, probably yours too, and our hope for the planet, I think, we can make a difference.
Fantastic, thank you. And you are reachable, aren't you, through, if you go onto the Crovus website and fill in the contact form, if you just say on the form that you are trying to reach Susan, we will make sure that the message finds its way to her. So if you do want to open a conversation about the book, any aspect of it, just get in touch through the form on the Crovus website, which will be at the bottom of this video. Thank you very much, Susan. You have done a very good job there of answering those questions. Next week's author of the week will be Judith, and no doubt it will be me sitting here again interviewing her. But in the meantime, we have lots more coming from Susan this week. We have blogs, we have videos. Keep your eyes peeled for those, and absolutely definitely head over to our website or to Amazon and find Child of the Earth. It is a fantastic read. It really does communicate, and it puts across a real genuine side to nature which will appeal to everyone. It doesn't matter whether you spend 24 hours a day outside or just look out of your kitchen window. There's something there for all people who have an appreciation of nature, however big, however small. Okay, well, until next week then, everyone. See ya!